Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of Cloud Deep Dive. My name is Ankush Koyal and I'm a Senior Technical Account Manager at AWS. Joining me today is a very special guest from the CodeWhisperer team. Hi Ankur, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Ankush?
I'm doing good, Ankur. Thank you so much for sparing us some time and talking to us today. So, can you tell us a little bit about CodeWhisperer? What is this?
Sure, yeah. CodeWhisperer is a machine learning powered coding companion that helps developers to write code faster. So, as they're writing code in their IDE, they will see automatic code completions, right? Next 10, 15 lines of code generated automatically based on their previous context, their previous code, and the comments they have written so far in their IDE. The idea here is to actually save developers the time they spend on looking up documentation and code snippets on the web and make them more productive right in the IDE.
Oh, that sounds interesting. So, do you have any demo today you want to present it to us?
Sure, yeah. Let's start with a simple demo. We will look at a couple of things. We will see how, based on a simple comment in English, how CodeWhisperer can generate a function, an entire function, to upload a file to S3 with server-side encryption. And then we'll also take a look at a simple data transformation use case where we will see how we can convert JSON file into CSV file, once again with simple instructions.
Okay.
All right, so let's start with the S3 example. What we're doing here is we're giving what I call or what we call context to CodeWhisperer. So you see the import statements here, which we are importing Boto3. That is to indicate that we are going to use AWS APIs. And now we have a simple English statement here that says function to upload a file to an S3 bucket with server-side encryption. And as I hit enter, what CodeWhisperer will do is first it will create the function signature for me. Right. So first we want to make sure that the function signature is correct, the parameters are correct.
Right.
And based on that, it will then generate the entire function.
Okay.
So I'm now to accept the recommendation that has been given to me by CodeWhisperer. I'm going to hit the tab key.
Okay.
When I hit the tab key, then the code recommendation becomes a part of my code. So it has been accepted. Now, you can see it in a different color IDE. And I'm going to hit the enter key again. So when I hit the enter key, as you can see here at the bottom right hand side of the screen, the CodeWhisperer icon is working behind the screen. And what it will do is basically it will generate the entire function this time.
Okay.
As based on the requirement that we wanted to have server-side encryption while uploading the file, it has also generated those parameters.
Okay.
Now here you actually have multiple recommendations. So it says suggestions 1 out of 2, right? So to look at the other suggestion, I'm going to hit the arrow key, the right arrow key.
Okay. So we can toggle between those suggestions by using the arrow keys. And
yes, we can toggle between the suggestions by using the arrow keys. The second one doesn't look as good, so I'm just going to go with the first one. I use the left arrow key once again. Okay. And to accept the recommendation, I'm just going to hit enter. Going to hit tab.
Yeah.
Right? So with tab, now it becomes a part of my code. And now you can see the entire function to upload a file to S3 with server-side encryption is ready, right? So within a few seconds, within actually having to go to AWS documentation and look up the parameters, it has been generated right inside my IDE, saving me at least 10 to 15 minutes of my time.
Right. No, that's super interesting because for me, like whenever I code, I need to go to the documentation and check out all those syntax and everything, and then I have to code it. So it will be certainly very helpful for developers for sure. Yeah. So one question: this code does developer need to make any changes, or is just kind of like code where they can just take it and start using it?
Sure. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about how it works behind the scenes, right? When I write a comment in the IDE, how does CodeWhisperer generate these recommendations? So I think I mentioned this is powered by a machine learning model, right? So this is an powered coding companion. We have trained the machine learning model on billions of lines of Amazon and open source code. So in a way, it has learned how to code in Python just like a human being learns, right? After years of practice, you may be proficient at writing code in Python. Similarly, with billions of lines of training data, now the model is proficient in writing code in Python. So that is what is happening behind the scenes, similar to what you do when a human being gets an instruction that says function to upload a file to S3.
Right.
Similarly, the model also gets the instructions and writes the code as a developer would. As a result, the code that is written is usually customized, is usually already I would say ready to use.
Mm-hmm.
You would actually have to make a lot of changes versus going to documentation and copy pasting code, and then you would have to change the variable names. You have to change everything, right?
Right.
So the idea here is we want to make sure as much as possible we generate code that is customized, that is already ready to use. Now, in some cases, you may have to make small changes here and there. But I think even in that case, we end up saving a significant amount of time for the developer.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. And in the starting, you mentioned that you included an Boto 3. So what if I don't include that? Does it find it out the code is coming from the AWS API or some third-party API? Or another question, like when I third-party, does it support third-party API or just support AWS APIs?
That's a great question, actually. So CodeWhisperer is a general purpose code completion tool, right? It's a general purpose code generation, code recommendation tool. What that means is, and we'll see another example where we will actually generate code for data transformation, which has nothing to do with AWS, right? So the idea here is to make developers more productive by helping them with code completion across their workflows. So AWS APIs is something that we would like to generate code with high accuracy, but at the same time, for all other tasks, including third-party APIs or data transformation, data wrangling, machine learning model generation, for file transformation, file operations, things like that, which are very commonly used use cases. You want to make sure that CodeWhisperer generates code with accurate recommendations.
Got it. And does it have any limit, like how many number of lines it can generate at one time, or it can just write the whole function? It may have 100 lines or 200 lines.
Yeah. So I think the idea here is to provide code blocks that make syntactical sense, right? So if it is a function completion, then we would generate the entire function. If it is in a for loop, we should generate the entire loop, things like that. So the idea here is to generate the next logical block of the code. But at the same time, we want to make sure that CodeWhisperer is a real-time coding companion. So we don't want to wait for 10, 15, 20 seconds for the code generation to happen, right? So that actually puts some limitations on the number of lines. And based on the settings today, based on how we have configured it today, the upper side, I would say, is somewhere around 20 to 25 lines of code at a given time.
Okay, that sounds good. It's very interesting tool, and I love to use it, Ankur. So another feature I heard about it is like it does the security scan as well. So can you show us how that works?
Sure, that's a great question, Ankush. Yeah, we absolutely have a security scanning feature that we want to help developers with. The reason for that is, I mentioned the machine learning model that powers CodeWhisperer is trained on billions of lines of code. And in fact, the more training data we give to the model, the more accurate it becomes. But at the same time, what happens is not all of the code that is given to the model is always production grade, right? So there could be some unwanted patterns it can learn from. At the same time, it is a code completion tool. So if you use it to basically with wrong prompts, if you use it to complete code that can have security issues, it will actually generate that. Also, the developers themselves might actually sometimes write some code that can have security issues, right? So we want to make sure that we give this security scanning feature to developers, which can be used to find out some critical and well-known security issues. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same upload to file S3 example, upload a file to S3 example, and here we'll do something that you shouldn't normally do, right? We will use hard-coded or variables to store AWS credentials. Right now, this is not a good practice, but we are only doing this for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to say variables for AWS credentials. Right? And here, what happens is now because I am prompting it to do so, CodeWhisperer will generate the code uh, to to
Store your access key.
exactly store your access key and secret key.
Right.
Now, in this case, you can see, one good thing it is doing is even though it is generating the code to store the access key in a variable, it is masking the access key itself.
Right.
So we are making sure that in case we find a valid access key or secret key in the underlying training data, it's not leaked out to the developers. We are making sure it is being masked.
Right.
So I'm going to hit the tab key to accept the suggestion, and I'm going to hit enter. Now it has actually generated a variable for the secret key. Let's hit that as well. You can see the secret key is also masked. Right. Now, in this case, what we have done is this is a dangerous practice because now your secret keys and access keys are a part of your code. You can upload it to I don't know a repository, and that if it is made public, it could be visible to other users. So let's run the security scan now. What is happening now is we are making sure that we are running security scan on this current file, and we want to actually run it through security detectors that will find the most common security issues. The idea here is, it could be something generated by CodeWhisperer or written by the developer. We want to make sure that if it's a common security vulnerability, we actually flag it to the user.
Okay.
So here you can see the bottom half of the screen is actually now saying security scan complete and one issue has been found. Click on this, and it has correctly found that I have hard-coded the credentials for AWS, right? And if I double click on the issue, it will take me to the exact line of code where I need to do something.
Got it.
So this is the idea behind the security scanning feature, where we want to make sure that the code that is generated by CodeWhisperer, at the same time code written by the developer, is also it doesn't have any commonly known security issues.
Right. So we suggest that whenever they write the code completed, before moving it to any code repository, run the security scan to make sure there is no such thing happen, and if or they can fix it before they move it to there.
Correct. Before checking in their code, they should actually run the security scan, and if there are any issues found, they should fix it before they upload it to a repository.
So other thing you were talking with a third party one. So can we do that one?
Okay, let's try.
Or if you have any other example you want to show, we can do that first.
Yeah, actually, let's do this thing. It was interesting. Let's actually. So what I'm trying to do is we'll convert a JSON file into a CSV file. I'm just giving it enough context in terms of importing the right packages. Now what we'll do is we'll basically write a simple comment that says function to convert JSON file into a CSV file. Okay, so it is trying to guess my intent. I'm going to hit the tab key. I'm going to hit enter. Now, upon hitting enter, it generates the function signature, right? But let's say in this case, I want to actually give more instructions. So I'm going to say keys of the JSON. Yeah. So keys of the JSON file are used as the headers of the CSV file, right? I use the right arrow key to look at the second recommendation.
Oh, so in that as well, it provide multiple recommendation in the comments as
Yeah,
well. Oh, wow.
because I mean, all of them mean the same thing, but if you look at the actual words in that English sentence, they
Mm-hmm.
are different,
Okay.
right? So the inherent meaning is the same,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Where it's written is different.
it's column names versus headers versus just
Mhm.
column names, right? So you can actually pick the one you prefer.
Right.
I'm hitting the tab key on the second recommendation. Now it would generate the function signature, which I will accept, and I'm
Mhm.
hitting the enter key again. So now what it should do is basically it should give me, okay, it should give me, so the second recommendation actually looks good.
Mhm.
It has the right set of comments and it is the most, I believe, efficient one. So I'm
Mhm.
just gonna hit the tab key and accept it, right? I'm sorry, in my thing, there is an indentation change. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, so I mean, basically, the idea here is, as you see here, this has nothing to do with AWS APIs.
Right.
It is, a very common use case where you have to transform a certain file into some other format for further
Right.
data processing, and CodeWhisperer will still be able to do that for you.
Right. Right. That's great, Ankur. So another question I have, like most of the developer, they shy away writing the test cases, and they have to write those test cases no matter whether they like it or not.
Yeah,
Does Code Whisperer help to write the test cases based on their functions they have created?
yeah. Actually, so there are two ways to do this. I think let's actually look at uh, the 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 same function that we have generated,
Mm-hmm.
and let's try to basically create a test case for this, right? Let's see how it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a function that has a test underscore prefix,
Mm-hmm.
and we will see whether it picks up on the existing function and generates a unit test
Oh,
for it,
okay, that's great.
right? So I'm going to say dev test underscore JSON, right? And now I will manually trigger Code Whisperer by doing option C.
Okay.
And now you can see actually it is trying to
Oh,
generate a function for me, right?
right,
Now in this case, it's probably not the greatest example of unit test because you have to test against some output.
right,
So there will be some assert statements, right? So here we can actually in the function, if there was uh, um, maybe error handling, right? And we would return true only when the entire function is complete. Any exception we would return false. Maybe you could just try
right.
that the function returns
True.
true.
Got it. So
But
it helps, but
yeah,
it helps to write those test cases and if required.
correct. Yeah, yeah. If I mean it depends on your logic in your function. So here, what was not the greatest example, but the idea here is just by prefixing it with test underscore and giving it the function name you want to generate the unit test for, it should actually do the unit test generation.
Got it. That's good to know, Ankur. So another question I have is like the tool looks like it's more kind of developer, but to my understanding, I've come from a developer background, and most of the developer what they do, they have their code snippet somewhere in their repository, and whenever they go need, they just go and pick it up from there and put it
Right.
there. So is this tool targeted for new developers, or it can help the kind of legends like who just can love to write codes and all those to them as well?
Yeah, I would say it is meant for professional developers. It can help new developers as well, but as you can see, it is actually recommending you multiple uh, recommendations, right? It's giving you in a suggestion there are multiple recommendations, and then you have to choose which one is the most correct one for you. So you
Mhm.
at least have to know the construct of the programming language and which are the best practices. Um, Other than that, there could be cases where none of the recommendations are completely accurate, right? So you have to reject the recommendations. So it is not in that autopilot mode yet where new programmers who are not proficient with programming languages yet can completely use it. But at the same time, in your example, right, if you're a professional developer who actually has been working on a particular project for a long time, they might have a place where they can go and copy paste the code.
Right.
But as soon as they move to a new project, maybe there is a new framework there, maybe there is, they have to use new languages, new libraries. So all that copy pasting they were doing on their previous project, does not carry forward necessarily.
True. True.
And that's where they will spend a lot of time looking at code snippets on the developer forums or documentation or googling it, and all of that time is especially for things like file operations and um, data wrangling, right? All of that time can be better spent on creative tasks which are unique to the application's workflow rather than these what I would like to say commonly used boilerplate code.
Right. Right. Got it. Got it. No, that looks good and it's promising. And I'm thinking that most of the developer will use it. They will get benefit out of it. One other thing I wanted to ask Ankur on this, like, what if the generated code is associated with some license?
Yeah, so let's see. For code that is generated and which might have referenceable licenses, what
Hmm.
we do is as soon as that code is generated, we notify the user that the generation might be associated with a license.
Okay.
In this case, you see the license type is MIT,
Hmm.
uh, and if you choose to accept the recommendation,
Hmm.
I'm hitting tab now. I accepted the recommendation.
Hmm.
Now here, as soon as you hover over the code,
Hmm.
you would see the same message that says this is a reference code that could be under a particular license.
Okay.
It gives you the repository name as well. And
Hmm.
you can also look at on the left hand side of your screen, there is open code reference panel uh,
Hmm.
action,
Hmm.
under which it records all of the recommendations you have accepted that might require some sort of reference.
Okay.
It's telling you that you accepted at this time, you accepted a recommendation that is under MIT license and belongs to a certain repository on GitHub.
Got it. So basically, getting that log as well. And this log will be accessible to the user or where these logs are stored.
Yeah, so this will be accessible to the end user.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can actually take a look at their own code reference panel and see
Mhm.
what is the type of the code they have accepted.
Okay.
Um, and also the idea here is basically we are giving the user enough information. So instead of MIT, let's say it was GPL, that
Mhm.
actually has downstream copyright implications, right?
Right.
So if the license type uh, is something the user is not comfortable with, they can then choose to ignore the recommendation and not use it.
Got it. Okay. Okay, that's good because that's one of the thing which always comes up. So that's why I thought it's better to ask that. So that's all the questions I had, Ankur, for today. The one last thing I just wonder how users can sign up for this. I know that this is in preview, not in GA right now. So if any developer want to take advantage or want to use this, so how they can do that?
Yeah, sure. So we are in preview. You can sign up by going to our product homepage
Mhm.
in AWS or Amazon.com slash CodeWhisperer. And we will give you access as soon as possible, and we'll send you a preview access code, right? So that code can be used to try this product, and we would love to hear the feedback from as many developers as possible.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so much, Ankur, for your time today. And I hope that this product will be used by many developers and wish you a good luck to the whole product team and many congratulations as well for coming up with this great tool. Thank you so much for
Thank
giving this time today and sharing this with the whole team.
Thank you. Thank you, Ankush, for having me.
Thank you so much.